just got to the end of day 6 of the Undercover Policing Inquiry Tranche 3 Phase 1. We've been listening to the last of the evidence from Wendy, who was deceived into a long-term friendship by undercover police officer James Thomson. Wendy ended her evidence with a really blistering attack, not just on the officers but the management that oversaw the deployment of James Thomson, and the horrific abuses, human rights abuses that were encouraged, facilitated and covered up by the management. I'm joined with Donal Driscoll from the Undercover Research Group. What did you make of what we heard this afternoon?
It was great. Wendy is somebody who is at the heart of the events of Straven's deployment, and she systematically demolished anything he could come back on. It was harrowing to hear. I'm not saying it was, I say it was great in the sense like she really struck back, but it was harrowing when you hear the talk of hunt violence, the way they were battered, to the point where Straven himself had to go and change his appearance in order to pick them up and got injured. She just goes through the whole story systematically. It's like, I was there, I was in the middle, I knew everybody. He's a fantasist. Everything, you can't trust the word that comes out of his mouth. It was just calmly but really firmly delivered.
We were taking through a lot of his intelligence reports that he filed about Croydon hunt sabs and about Wendy herself particularly. I mean, a lot of this was quite banal stuff. He reported on hunt sabs going to volunteer at the local wildlife hospital to build a duck pond. There's a lot of information about who was staying at what house, who they were sleeping with. Wendy really effectively pointed out that he didn't have any useful intelligence to put in, so he was just putting in what information he could learn as being people's friend. It was really like just pathetic stuff in a lot of those reports.
Yeah, and like one of the things the big justification of the SDS is they were preventing public disorder. And it's really clear from those reports that the biggest threat to public order was the hunts. No single report on them. Most of is what the police own reports call tittle tattle. Of no intelligence value. It's like I've met some people, they're animal rights people. It's like good enough. But yeah, you have this like he's going into situations where hunt supporters are attacking people with golf clubs. They are driving down lanes, open top things, hunting down sabs in order to batter them. He gets battered, but he doesn't really report on that. He kind of brushes, I had some injuries, it's really bad. But, mate, the people who are putting their necks on the line, and Wendy talks a lot about this, these were part of a group that trusted each other because they had each other's backs, and he was in the middle of that, and he was inserting. He could have stopped that. He could have done something to stop the violence. He wasn't interested, which says everything you need to know about that unit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the way in which, despite being on the receiving end of hunt violence, so many of the undercover officers have just like downplayed, the serious criminality basically of the hunters and their supporters and the way they would attack people and batter them. I mean, and also the way that uniformed police would collude in that. We heard about a time where police basically kind of kept sabs in a field so that they could be whipped by charging hunters on horseback. It's really horrific stuff. And I think one of the things the inquiry has been a really useful sort of platform for is like kind of showing the brutality of the hunt and the levels of violence they're willing to use against people for protecting the lives of wildlife.
Yeah, and here we see an example of an undercover police officer actually getting injured. And a large chunk of the evidence focused on a particular incident where a hunt supporter who is well known to Wendy, not a hunt supporter, or a hunt sab who's well known to Wednesday. Sorry, I'm losing it plot a bit. a hunt sab who is well known to Wendy was driven over by a hunt supporter. Now, I know a few details of that. It's like he didn't just drive over; he got reversed back over several times. The guy almost died. It was a big outcry, and not long after, the person who did that was seen in the film. Wendy describes that he's basically, given the sign of the steering wheel, he's continuing to threat hunters. Where are the police? And this, I was a hunt sab, wasn't in that group, but I was nearby. I remember just how horrified and shocked we all were, how it just sent ripples through. We'd already lost 2 Onsabs killed. It looked like we were about to lose a third. It was devastating. And, all Straven does is go around and make up stories about revenge attacks. I'm sure we'll come on to it, the now infamous Operation Lime.
Yeah, Operation Lime. It's come up numerous times when it's relating to James Thomson's deployment. This was this whole sort of supposed revenge attack plan that he was part of, which involved a group of Sabs, including himself, going over to France, purchasing a firearm, ammunition, and then supposedly James Thomson sort of engineered for the Land Rover with the gun and ammunition in it to be stolen. Whilst in Marseille, and therefore stop the gun being brought back into the UK. I mean, as Wendy kind of pointed out, this was a ridiculous concocted plan that would have involved, smuggling a firearm through customs rather than, somebody trying to source one in the country. As she said, as if Sabs were going to have a conspiracy to murder somebody. But what was really interesting was the fact that had the initial plan failed, if the van with the gun in had not been stolen, then the plan was for the customs agents to be contacted by the SDS and told to let that car through, so that James Thomson wouldn't have been implicated with having the gun on him, and effectively that a firearm would have been brought into the country illegally with police full knowledge. I mean, it's just an insane situation.
It beggars belief, and when he put it really nicely, so her jaw just hit the floor, and it's like I had to go read it 10 times, and it's like I read it was like, who in their right mind thought that this. I know animal rights get accused of a lot of crazy things, but we're not that stupid. Give us some credibility. That is just gobsmacking.
Yeah, there was another one which I thought was really kind of illustrative about kind of the way in which these undercover officers operated. So I talked in some of the previous videos the way in which James Thomson inserted himself into the inner circle of Wendy's life and made himself the sort of number one confidant and supporter of her during her mother's illness and untimely death. What we heard about in the last couple of hours was about how following her mother's death, Wendy was unable to remain at her mother's house and was looking with the inheritance to buy a different property, but that relied on probate going through, and it was very simple probate, so it should have been fairly quick, but it ended up taking the full 6 months. She never really understood why. We then saw in the extraction report of James Thomson that his attempts to disrupt the purchase of the house having failed. Essentially, Wendy was unable to. Eventually, did manage to get the house she wanted, but it was a very close run thing. She nearly lost it. It was all very stressful. And to find out that, in fact, James Thomson had been attempting to disrupt this. We don't know why he was trying to disrupt it, but we've already heard that he was stressed about the fact that Sarah lived far too close to his ex-wife and ex-partner and 3 children, and possibly there was something really useful to him about where Wendy was at the time, that he didn't want her living in this place or that place, really controlling their lives. This sort of behaviour, disrupting probate, just really something really weird and horrible about it.
Yeah, and also you step back and think about it, how would you go around doing that? It's just there's a few little things throughout the car. You think, well, yes, but how and why? How it beggars belief that how is the state working on this level that somehow a cop can turn up somewhere else and say, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, can you slow this down? And people are going, okay. It's just there's something very corrupt about it all.
Yeah, deeply corrupt. I mean, and that seems to. I mean, the fact that we read the report at the end of his deployment, pointing out the falsehoods of his reports, the dishonesty to his managers, the disobeying of direct orders, and the disciplining of him was that for 2 years his security clearance was downgraded. He was withdrawn from his deployment early, and his firearms license he had to reapply for it. Within 2 years, however, he was a close protection officer protecting Tony Blair, amongst others, and had his firearms license back, appeared not to really have any kind of punishment for that. In fact, the report says that it would be there was some sort of danger of disciplining him because it could expose the unit in some way. I mean, deeply corrupt.
Basically, if they disciplined him, he would kick off and he could use hey, I'll just expose the unit. So he blackmailed them, basically. Or they set up a situation where they were pretty easy to blackmail with a very simple threat.
Yeah, and as we've heard time and time again from former undercover officers and particularly their managers, the security of the unit was more important than anything else. That was the primary concern. So if there's any danger of anything being exposed, well, nothing else really mattered. That's it. Is there anything else you want to add?
I was going to say, one of the things that came across really powerful from Wendy's evidence was her discussion about how he infiltrated her life, used her to set up relationships with other women, and also just tainted many of her memories. And it really comes across as like she's got to go back and look at all of that and revalue, even like around the death of her mother. And I know we're going to hear more about on the covers doing this, but for me, it's one of the most sick aspects. And of many sick aspects, that your loved one, your parents are dying, your loved ones are dying, and you're inserting yourself into those lives in that most vulnerable of moments, and that takes a certain bizarre coldness, that shows how inhuman these people really are.
Yeah, it really does. There's something incredibly dark and horrible about that, and I think Wendy gave fantastic testimony today. I think she really brought to life how horrible all that has been. It's deeply disturbing. That is there'll be a break now in the inquiry for the next, there's a half-term break, so we won't have any hearings for a week. When we return on the 3rd of November, we'll be hearing from Ellie again. You might remember from this morning, she didn't quite finish her evidence. There was more for her to say. We'll then be hearing on the Tuesday, on the 4th, we'll be hearing from Lisa Crossland. Lisa Crossland is a relative of Kevin Crossland, who was a child who died in 1966, who James Thomson stole the identity of, one of many identities that he stole, but he used this one that he stole from a dead child. And then on the 5th of November, we'll be hearing from James Thomson himself, HN16. He'll be questioned over 4 days. There's a lot. There's a lot to be asked of him. I think the scene has really been set for him, with some pretty difficult things for him to get out of. I'd really recommend people follow that closely. He'll be giving evidence live in person here at the International Dispute Resolution Centre. We'll be able to look him in the eye as he's answering the questions. If you haven't registered to attend the hearings, I think it's still possible to attend, should you want to, and I would really recommend anybody who's able to come along. Anything else to add?
Yep.
I'll be doing a Twitter Spaces recap this evening. I'll also do like a little short video under 3 minutes long, kind of like going over the day. I've been trying to do those lately. I've been trying to sharing those around on TikTok and Instagram and other places. If you're able to share those, it really would help. But yeah, thanks for joining us. I'll maybe see you at the Twitter Spaces later. If you've been following the hearings, it'd be really great if you could join in the conversation. It's good if it's not just my voice that everybody always hears. All right, cheers for joining us. Bye for now.